Hello?
Hey,
I need to change this so that it's going. Hold on. I have it. Up. Hmm.
I cannot offer very much guidance. It took me forever to figure out how to get my video to start working.
Okay, let me see. Weird. It seemed like it was working, but hmm. It says safe driving mode.
I would hope that you wouldn't be on a Zoom call while driving. That would be
That would be, yeah. Although I think there are probably some people that do that. I don't know why.
on my screen at least. In the bottom left corner, there's a picture of a video camera that I can toggle back and forth on.
Yeah, I don't have that. Let me look. Zoom. I just have like a little, it says safe driving mode. My video is stopped. Oh, here it is. I was just on the wrong, I just needed to go like that. Can you see me?
Not yet.
Okay, here we go. Well done.
Aha, there you are.
There I am.
Hi, nice to meet you finally.
Nice to meet you.
I am Tony. And
Hi, Tony.
you go by Felipe?
Philippe.
Philippe. And is it Coquet?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Philippe Coquet. I have a little spiel to run through at the very beginning. So today's date is Thursday, November 19th. My name is Tony Shelton, and I am talking with Philippe Coquet. And if you are comfortable, you can state when you were born and where.
I was born in, you want the whole date or just the?
Just year is fine.
I was born in July 12th, 1958 in Silver City, New Mexico.
Okay. And what are your preferred pronouns?
Any that you like.
Sure.
Any and all.
Okay. And how long have you been living in this area?
8 years
And is it Asheville or in another place nearby?
in Asheville.
Okay. Well, that is the little introduction that I had to give, just for the records. This is basically an opportunity for you to tell your story,
Mm-hmm.
and it is open ended. I have a couple of questions that I could use to help start conversations or guide us in one direction or another, but really it's up to you. However,
Okay.
you would like to share whatever just about your experience being a member of the LGBT plus community in Western North Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, it would be great if you could start me with some questions. I can tend to go on, but
Sure,
it
yeah.
helps for me to have a starting point because I have many,
Oh.
many stories. So
So, what brought you here to this area?
um my partner and I were living in Oakland, California, and we realized we were done with the Bay Area and with California in general. Both of us had been there many, many years. And I spent some time in Texas, but other than that, most of my time had been in California. Um, we took a 2-year road trip and looked everywhere. And my partner's mom lived in Hendersonville.
Okay.
So we visited her a couple of times. And each time we came, we had more connections. And within a couple of months after coming here twice, I had more friends here than I had had in 4 years in San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
So everyone kept saying, are you guys going to move here? Do you live here yet? Because we kept coming back. And so then we
I
just
think
close it.
my video has stopped.
Yeah, yours has stopped.
Oop, there you are. We had
Yeah,
a
you too.
little freeze.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's really awesome. So how exactly did you meet people and generate all of those friends just from those couple of visits?
um, wow. So a few people that we met were massage therapists,
Mhm.
which is what my partner and I also do.
Okay.
So he got a massage from somebody and they became fast friends, and a guy who'd been here a long time. And he introduced us to a few people. I also am a dancer and went to a couple of contact improvisation jams in town and met people there that were amazing. We're also active in a tantra community, and so we met people in that community. Um, yeah, we just kept meeting people. Ecstatic dance is something that we used to do back in the days when you could do such a thing.
Mm,
And and there's a big dance community here in Asheville. So there were those things. I'm a theater artist, and there was a really lovely theater community here, and that I became just by going to see shows and meeting people. And there were a lot of intersections in all these communities. Oh, and also too, last but not least, we had some friends from the Radical Fairy community as well. That with the proximity to Short Mountain Sanctuary in Tennessee, there were a lot of people that we met through a group, kind of a coffee meetup.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there was a lot of intersections, like I said, in all the different groups.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you found all of those things, and I feel
Yeah.
like Asheville, not so much where I am, but definitely in Asheville, it's a very culturally connected community,
Yes.
um, where a whole lot of different groups of people intersect.
I think so too. Where are you?
I live just outside of Cherokee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a
I like,
slightly
yeah,
different area.
it is a slightly different area. Yeah. I have friends who live in Cherokee, so,
Nice.
and near there too. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you have been here 8 years, so clearly you have really enjoyed it.
Hmm.
What exactly is it that keeps you here? What kind of elements in the community really have, rooted you in this place?
Well, I mean, the first thing is you said the word elements, and I would say it's the elements. So, um, obviously, the nature is phenomenal, and I'm a hiker and a swimmer, and you know, love all that stuff. So it's bounty, and I can just go on a walk through neighborhoods in Asheville and be entertained and enjoy. I love the seasons. I love um, just how much nature there is. I love the bears.
Mm,
I love um, how alive it feels here and healthy, like vibrant, unpolluted, relatively to most places I've lived, and I've lived in many places in the country. Um, it feels very, earth. I feel grounded here.
mhm,
Um, and I would say in the community, it's just the warmth of people and the genuineness. There's an authenticity to people here
Mhm.
that I don't find everywhere else. I know I've lived in some places where people were really authentic, but then they were really brusque or kind of harsh.
Yeah.
Whereas here you have the gentility of the South with the genuineness of a place like Asheville, which is very much a melting pot in terms of it's like all the good parts of a big city in a small town. That's the way I describe it here.
Mhm.
Because all the people, so many people. Like less and less with COVID and all of that too. But um, I can always go somewhere and feel like I'm going to run into someone I know,
Yeah.
and I love that. But at the same time, I can also go downtown and there are so many people from so many places, which I enjoy. And it's also becoming more diverse in the last few months, actually, maybe 6 months to a year.
Hmm.
Going downtown, there's actually a lot more than white people. Yeah.
Nice.
So there's the community, and then there's also people. Um, I'm a pretty alternative type person, so all the different things that I'm interested in
Mhm.
are happening here, whether it's like comedy or um, Appalachian music or herbalism or just so many everything in diversity. I've been able to find performance art and yeah, kind of people who are into interesting different things academically. Yeah,
That's awesome. Okay. Have you worked with any of the LGBT plus organizations in the area?
I haven't personally. I've been involved in some theater that did had some connections
Mhm.
with some of the. Um, I work with a theater company called Different Strokes, and it's run by a gay woman, African American woman, Stephanie Hickling Beckman, who's really powerful in the community, and she does a lot of work with organizations.
Mhm.
So I've been in a few plays there and participated in some experiences that they've had. I haven't done anything directly with that. I'm getting ready this weekend to start a workshop where I'm going to be playing a character called Gunkle, which is gay uncle,
Okay. Yeah,
and it's actually going to be it's working toward a pilot for a TV series for gay kids.
that would be really cool.
Yeah, and I'm going to be like a kind of a Pee Wee Hermanish character, probably.
Nice. Uncles are the best kind of uncles.
Yeah, I think so. I had one.
uh, I did not have a few cousins though.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Mm, would you say that there are organizations or groups within the community that you would consider assets to the LGBT people?
Yeah, I'm familiar with one called Youth Outright, I believe, and they do really great work with young gay folk, queer folk in town, and yeah, a friend of mine is actually mentoring a young man who's 18 and had to leave an abusive situation at home.
Mm,
His father was, beating him up basically for singling him out for being gay, and it took him a while to extricate himself out of the house, even though he's 18.
yeah.
And they're doing a lot to help him. So, and I've heard a lot of different stories about that group and what they do. Um, I'm not so familiar with, I mean, I used to be, over many years, I've been part of different situations in gay community um, in Los Angeles and New York and different places I lived. But at this point in my life, I think I'm just not so connected to that realm. It's hard enough just to get by and be part of the arts community as much as I can. That's kind of the way I give back.
Yeah. And I'm sure like this year has not been easy for making any kind of connections or impact on
Zero.
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you are comfortable with it, would you like to talk about your coming out journey?
Sure. Um, I was really lucky. I was never in the closet. I came of age at in 1970 something, and I lived in Hollywood, California. So when I was 14, I guess I came out. I mean, my best girlfriend and I, who were very openly bisexual in school, in high school. I guess I was 15. Um, and we had lots of friends who were too. It was very popular at the time because of David Bowie and Elton John had come
Yeah.
out, and Mick Jagger and people, and they were all like, "I'm bisexual," and so we were all glam rockers. You know, I wore platform tennis shoes and rhinestone collars and all kinds of stuff, and my hair was all wild, and
Right.
so and I was active. I was active sexually when I was 15. Um, it was a lot easier in those days because it was the sexual revolution pre-AIDS. So it was the 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 light, the bright light before the darkness of that. Um, and my girlfriend and I told my dad. We were just casually talking over dinner, and we were like, "Yeah, we're bisexual," and my dad was like, "Yeah, so is everybody. So what?" And he was bisexual, and I knew that at that point anyway. So, and my mom was very open. She had some misgivings because I wrote a letter to the Gay Community Services Center
Mhm.
in Hollywood, and it was, I think I was asking for some kind of, I was answering an ad in some local paper or something, and I was asking for some kind of help, I guess.
Mhm.
Probably meeting people because
Yeah.
I wasn't meeting people my age who were interested in me anyway. Um, I was just mostly dating straight guys that just wanted some sex, and um, so I wrote this letter somehow, and I put my dad's name on it
Oh
for some
no.
reason. I don't
Yeah.
know why. Maybe because I know why, because I was just going to look for it in the mail,
Mhm.
so my mom wouldn't open it. Maybe if it was his addressed to him. Anyway, he was out of town when it came in. She opened it, saw this thing, and was very disturbed. She couldn't understand what was going on. So she had a little bit of a meltdown about that. But then after it was fine after that. And she knew my dad was bisexual. She was pretty asexual.
Mhm.
She was kind of like a lot of people. Most of her best friends, female best friends, were lesbians, and and all of her husbands were gay men,
Mhm.
basically. She married a very openly gay man, second after my dad, and she had um, a boyfriend in college who was gay who committed suicide.
Mhm.
So I would say I grew up in a queer family,
Yeah.
and there were a lot of other people that were around our situation. We were in the theater, and so there were gay people everywhere. So I didn't ever really know life without gay folks. I met my first trans woman when I was like 8 years old and knew that she was trans because my parents told me. And yeah, it was very blessed. Um, yeah, I was at my first gay pride parade when I was 14, 15, maybe.
Nice. I
Yeah,
actually went to my first one last year.
you did. Wow.
uh, the
How
one in
was,
Ash. It was loud.
yeah.
I-
I, I'm not a big fan of them anymore.
yeah, I'm more of a quiet, not crowded kind of person, and
Uh-huh.
it was way too much stimulation from all of the people and all of the music, and
Hmm.
but it was, I mean, it was nice. It was nice to see so many people of the community coming together and all the different organizations showing support. That was really nice.
Hmm. Cool. Was it too corporate?
Mm,
That's what I don't like about them anymore. They used to be not corporate. It was very homegrown, but
I I can't say I really thought that, but in retrospect, I could see that being true.
mhm. Lots of like banks and beer companies and
Random companies that you wouldn't think would be not necessarily associated with, but like I
supportive. Yeah.
couldn't really figure out why they were there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. They're there to get more customers,
Mm,
basically. Yeah. That's the sad part. They used to be very much, little homegrown organizations that would have the floats,
mhm.
little dykes on bikes kind of situation.
Nice. Cool. Um, let's see. My last little probing question here is, what are some of the most valuable or influential things that your generation has done for the upcoming generations? And I guess what work still
Wow.
remains for us to do to make sure that the future generations have what they need?
Hmm. That's a really good question. Hmm. I'm not sure how to answer that. I know that a lot of the younger people that I talk to um, like to hear my stories of the way things were. Um, I mean, our generation fought for a lot of things, but also missed a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, um, it's interesting because in all society, it seems like we went backwards for what we were pushing so far
Mhm.
for self-expression, for radical inclusion, and that was including race and gender and gender expression. And in those days, when I was a young man, that was it was all part of it. Like we never thought of excluding people because of their age, their gender, their orientation, whether it be gay, straight, bisexual. If they were in the community, they were in the community. And race, definitely. Um, every people of every color, and this was I was in a big city, so um, it was all inclusive. But somehow after that, and we were also into really kind of it had a more of a hippie ethos, I guess, like kind of like free love and we wanted to explore new horizons in terms of relationships. And so there were a lot of open relationships, and there was a lot of, um, it was not so heteronormative, which then started happening in the 80s. Around the same time as HIV happened, a lot of gay people started coming out, who were like, no, we're really not like all those freaks. We're just as normal as they are. We want to get married and have children just like you guys do. Right. But in my generation, that was not what we were into.
Mm,
I mean, there were people who, I actually made an attempt to artificially inseminate a lesbian couple. It just didn't work with
mm,
my partner at the time in my 20s. And my partner now has 5 kids, um, 4 of whom are through artificial insemination with lesbian couples.
mm,
And he helped raise all of them. So we were doing that kind of thing, but we weren't doing it in the normative nuclear family kind of way. It was definitely like the chosen family stuff. So I guess I am answering the question. I would say, um, as I do to the folks that I meet, young gay folks that I meet, be open to doing things in a different way. Um, be open to experimenting. We're different, meaning not heterosexually um, oriented, for a reason. I think there are a lot of things that we have and attributes we have to give to society that we need to cultivate and pass on. Um, and those don't have to include, you know, feminine qualities necessarily in men or masculine qualities in women. And it might include that, in the Native American cultures, they call us two-spirit,
mm.
meaning that we're a more balanced version of the two. We have both genders in us. So I feel like moving past the norms, which already we actually help culture to evolve by busting the norms.
Yeah.
And I think, and I'm being on the edge in terms of thought, in terms of action, in terms of expression, in terms of just how we present in the world, how we show up in the world.
Mhm.
Um, Not that we need to be all the same, because we don't. I mean, I know a lot of what you would call straight acting gay guys who are amazing people. And if somebody wants to be in the
Yeah.
military and raise a family and have kids, that's great. But I just want it to be like, I'm very happy to be around a lot of young queer guys and women and girls who are, um, yeah, breaking all the gender barriers and the binary and everything. And it's great. It's kind of like it was when I was in high school and college again. So I'm glad that that mantle is being taken on, that
Mm.
it's still continuing. And it went on before I was around,
Yeah.
historically.
It does
So
it
yeah.
does seem like the new generation, like the people, I don't even know what they call them anymore. Gen Zers, is that what the young ones are now?
I don't know.
They they seem to be more comfortable with being themselves in a public space.
Hmm.
So it feels like the older generations have at least done something positive in creating that space where they can feel that comfort.
Yeah, I think so. And I
So
think a
a lot
lot of
still a long way to go. It's
Yeah, of course. Of course. There's lots of ways to go. But like one of the things that some people talk about being uncomfortable,
mm,
like holding hands downtown or something in Asheville. And I'm like, are you serious? Like for me, when I was coming out or being out and about, um, I was literally afraid of getting a baseball bat in my head.
mm,
And I was gay bashed 4 times at least by groups of people and, very close to death. And, and that was in a very enlightened place in an enlightened time, supposedly. And that doesn't happen so much anymore, which is amazing because
mm,
that used to be just, you were always afraid,
yeah.
and so I think things have changed a huge amount in terms of visibility and representation and acceptance in the general society.
Mhm.
It's way, way different than it was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different things that have, I understand that gay marriage is good because it normalizes it for people. What I don't like is then when gay people bemoan the fact that there are still so many freaky gay people.
I feel like there's freaky on both sides, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, um, I have a whole bunch of other I have pages and pages and pages of questions, but
Mhm.
you're more than welcome to just go open-ended about any of those topics. I personally have never heard of um, like the youth outrights or the different strokes, or I don't
Mm.
even know what a radical fairy is.
Oh,
So,
cool. I can talk about that.
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So, the radical fairy movement was something that started in various places of the country um, in the 1970s, probably early 70s. And it was a bunch of kind of back to the earth, kind of hippie, pagan, queer men at the beginning, some women very soon after, who one of the places it started was Asheville,
Mhm.
actually, or outside of Asheville, I think near Black Rock. I mean, Black Mountain, maybe. And people started gathering. And then there was a guy named Harry Hay, who was one of the grandfathers of gay liberation. He was one of the heads of the Mattachine Society, which was studying and forwarding gay liberation in the 60s. And he and his partner, John Burnside, started this group among several groups. And in San Francisco, I think, and New York and LA, and they would get together and take people out into the mountains and have what was called a fairy gathering. And they had a radical fairy manifesto. It was all about inclusion. It was all about um, kind of going back to the land and everybody being accepted and loved. And they would do these things called heart circles, where everybody would stand around and each person would get a chance to share their heart with no talk back or anything. And a lot of things that the radical fairies did kind of have bled into the general culture
Mhm.
in many ways. And there were a lot of amazing people involved, including some authors and artists, playwrights, filmmakers who got involved in this thing. And I was involved in my early 20s, near the beginning of the radical fairy movement. And then I left that because it just didn't feel like the right thing for me at the time. And I did something else for many, many years. And then I returned back to find that the radical fairies were still around and blossoming. And there are several sanctuaries in the country where people live on the land, and it's kind of communal.
Mhm.
And although it's kind of anarchic, they're very much into anarchy. And in some of these sanctuaries, there's as many as 200 or 300 people that live around the land, and they've been there since the 70s.
Wow.
And they're kind of in rural, out of the way places. Um, and those places, they have gatherings every now and then, and they call out, and several hundred people descend on a place for a week or two and farm and um, party and do rituals and dance around the fire. And it's kind of like a celebration.
Mhm.
Um, it's become much more inclusive, many more people come from urban areas and participate, and they do workshops and figure out new ways to live, and how do communities make it. And there's a lot of drama
Sure. Yeah.
and a lot of music, and often a lot of like electronic music all night long in the middle of the woods. Stuff like that. um yeah, it's a wonderful world and community, and now they have them all over the world. Thailand and Amsterdam, or in Holland and France, and I think Spain now. It's like, yeah, South Africa,
Do you feel like
Israel.
the do you feel like the like basic I guess the ethos of the community is the same now as it was, you know, decades ago? Or do you feel like it has changed or maybe grown?
It has grown. It has definitely grown. Yeah. There were some things, because people were just trying to figure stuff out,
Mhm.
pretty new. And there were some of them that were like intense communists, and some of them that were like really intense pagans, you know. Um, and so there were some dogmas that came with it, even though it was radically inclusive
Mhm.
and radically everything. Some people wrote books about it, and they were great. Um, but yeah, I think it's mellowed more. I mean, it's also had to deal with, like, the gay community in general. It's had to deal with like crystal meth addiction. It's
Mhm.
had to deal with um, the rampant, still the HIV issues, and um, it's had to deal with a lot of homeless youth and not being prepared to take care of them
Mhm.
necessarily. So there's a lot of things that have come around, that it's interesting because it's kind of a lawless community and there's no hierarchy.
Mhm.
So yeah, there've been issues, but they're learning issues, and people are really working and learning, and a lot of the young people are so smart. They're just like, yeah, they've learned a lot more than we knew at the time when we were doing that.
Do you think that the young people today in the community fully grasp the the darker issues that previous generations had to deal with, the drug addiction, the HIV epidemic? Do you think that they of course know that it happened and that it still is, you know, exists in the community today, but do you feel like a lot of people think of it as something that has already happened and not worth remembering, or do you think that they try to take the lessons learned to heart?
Well, I think, like with everything, I know a lot of young people who are really well schooled and all that, and they really understand. I mean, I think I'll because you said drug addiction, I think actually drug addiction is way more serious now, in terms of what crystal meth does to communities and young people especially. We didn't have those issues at all.
Mm.
When I was young, we were all smoking pot. Maybe we took LSD, and maybe we snorted cocaine once in a while, but it was not. We were not a big drug addicted culture at all. That happened later, 90s, the 90s and on since then. But yeah, in terms of HIV, and also in terms of what we had to fight for to get to where we are now, I think a lot of young people are not. No, they don't even. It's not even in their thing, which is good in a way. I mean, now that people have prophylactics and that when they can't, people who just take Truvada or whatever, and they don't, or they just use condoms all the time, and they don't think about it. It's better than the young ones who grew up, who came of age in the 80s and 90s and were just afraid to have sex because they thought they would die.
Yeah.
That's the worst. I came from a generation where just all my friends died, and many of them right in front of me. And that was the plague
Hmm.
that we experienced. And most people don't know about that. And a lot of people don't know what it was like to be, the younger generation who grew up in it, which would be very scary as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, just like, I think it's just the same with anything. There's a lot of, straight white people who know nothing about civil rights. There's a lot of Black people who don't know about civil rights, the civil rights movement. They have no idea. They're just like, oh, what do you mean? People I talk to. So I don't know how that happens. I mean, I think we get educated in pretty poor ways by the media,
Yeah.
unless we seek it out. Now, right now, if you watch Netflix, for instance, you can get a history lesson on almost anything,
Very true.
right? Because there's such great programming about these times and these issues and stuff. So it just depends on if people are the type that want to learn about history, or if they only want to watch video games, play video games and
Mhm.
get high or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I think it's like so many things. It's like it's a both and
Mhm.
answer to the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am amazed at some people who I talk to who are young, who have no idea of any of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It amazes me too, and sometimes it scares me a little bit.
Yeah. But I think it's always been the case.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, we just had a president that could have very easily turned into a way worse situation with just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And it was, because people didn't remember what happened before in other times in other countries.
We have a short collective memory.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see. What else do I have in here? Mm, Have you had any experiences dealing with how the concepts of race and ethnicity have intersected in the LGBT community?
Oh, sure. I mean, once again, for many, many years growing up, civil rights was very much active at the same time as gay rights. So there was an intersection. Not everybody, I mean, there was always, of course, gay white supremacists and and homophobic African American and Latino people who I encountered. So that was one thing, and I've had many experiences with people on the down
experiences with people
who were,
who were,
I'm getting
I'm
somehow an
getting
echo
somehow an
back
echo back.
in my voice.
I hear a little echo.
Yeah, my voice was coming back to me. Now it isn't.
Okay.
It's gone now. It's fine.
Not sure if it's my connection or what. My video freezes every once in a while for some reason.
Yeah, yours too. So I've known a lot of people who were young men in particular who were on the down low, and how hard it was for them in particular in their community and their culture to come out and to be accepted. As far as racism within the white gay community, I haven't really hung out with that faction of the gay community. I was never, my community has always been on the fringe of the gay community, the fringe of the fringe. I've always been in the kind of, more spiritual, hippie, new age kind of world of and more on the kind of queer identification rather than gay identification. Even way back then, gender fluidity and stuff like that. So what we would call like norm gay was not my world. So there was always a lot of inclusion. There were always a lot of people of different races within the community I was involved in. But I see it, and I've encountered certainly people who've talked to me about their experiences of racism within the gay community. Absolutely. And you see it on like hookup apps and things like that. I mean, it's,
Oh yeah, that's very true.
the people saying, not into black guys, sorry, it's not a racist thing or whatever. And I'm like, the fuck? I mean, it's like, what? No, and I have said things to people, just like randomly, like, I'll just say something. How can you say that's not racist? Because it's specifically about a race. I'm not saying you hate black men, but something in you has to make a statement about just those people. Why would you say that unless you're a racist? There's no reason to. Anytime people do that kind of exclusion language, that's what it is.
Yeah. What do you think of app culture?
Well, I'm of two minds about it. In some ways it's expedient. Bars were never my favorite way to meet people. I sometimes like to go to a bar, especially if it's like a cute, nice bar with some craft cocktails and like really good music or something. Like I love that kind of situation. I'm an extrovert, so I like being around lots of people, which has made it very difficult in this period of time. But the fact that we used to have to go to bars and get drunk to meet men was kind of a drag. That said, I had a lot of some of the best sex I ever had in parks and public restrooms, and because that's the culture I grew up in, and it was amazing, that kind of way of like being able to meet someone when you were walking down the street and somebody would just be on their porch and say, hey, and you'd say, hey, and you'd go up and talk to them. And then you'd, start dating or you'd have sex with them or whatever. But there were all kinds of very more personal ways to do it. that I love, and they're gone pretty much. Um, I like to be, yeah, I like to be able to meet people in all kinds of different ways. Whereas with app culture, it's like this is the only way you meet people. Like that, everything, if everything else wasn't gone, I'd probably be okay with app culture because it just gives
Mhm.
another opportunity, right? So I like, and that being said, I have met a few people on apps that are friends of mine.
Mhm.
I also know two people who met their husbands on an app. One of whom who had never been on an app before got on the app, met his husband, and now he lives in Italy.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, you know what I mean. And we're going as soon as we can to stay in their little apartment in Florence.
That
But
would be lovely.
yeah, isn't that amazing? And he literally was talked into going on an app, and he was like,
Mhm.
"I'll never do that," and he was like, "Okay," and he did it. And the second person he talked to ended up being his husband.
Wow.
Yeah, a year later. So there my problem with most of what app culture and even the sites, all the sites that are on, um, is that most people don't take them seriously.
Mhm.
That it's mostly just a waste of time. That most people are like, and myself included, I have to say, I've been a person who've been like in the mood to be on an app, looking for something, and not that I need to be. And I'm like looking and I'm like swiping and I'm like, oh, this person seems interesting. And I'll chat them up and then they'll chat me up and I chat them up and they say something else. And then I'm off the app
Mhm.
and I don't follow through because I'm no longer in the mood or it's not, other things have happened.
Yeah.
And that happens so much that it just feels like, oh, such a waste of time, you know? So do you use them?
Uh, I have never it's been a very long time since I've lived in a place where people were, a very populated place. So, I have used them simply just to be able to find people to talk to,
Yeah.
um, because, the community is so small in general, and then when you put yourself in a very rural, isolated area, it's basically you're the only one for a very long distance, and
Oh,
there's
wow.
there's no real way to meet or talk to people otherwise.
Hmm. Interesting. So
Yeah.
like they used to have like gay bars in Silva, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That seems like an odd place for one.
Yeah, I think there were two gay bars there. One of them still I mean, not open right now, probably, but right before the pandemic, yeah. Because I had a friend who lived in Silva, and I thought, "You're so gay. Like, what do you do out there?" Because I mean, like gay meaning like um, gay community kind of person,
Mhm.
very much like going to the drag shows and supporting all these things and doing. And was like, "Oh no, Silva is like the cutest place for gay people."
Mm.
And so you never know. But yeah, I can imagine that they could be great for people living out in rural places. I think people used to do um, in the old days, you would just go to places like parks. It was weird, and that's where you would meet people. And then when that people would put ads in newspapers and and then online, they started having all these things or like 1-800 numbers. We went through a period of that
Mhm.
where we have all these numbers that you could call and chat with people on the phone. It was so random. It was very weird. And then you could meet up. That seemed even scarier than an app because you didn't know anything about them at all.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. It's amazing how things have changed.
Yeah. And not at all.
Mm,
People are still, men are still getting together for everything from sex to romance to playing chess, um, through whatever way they can.
yeah. How do you think that this year of isolation is going to affect the local community? Do you think that connections have been lost, or do you think that everybody's just put their lives on hold?
I think connections have been lost, and I think connections have been deepened. I think among my community, we've gotten closer.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of us are not like sheltering in place anymore, haven't been, so we're getting together in groups, and we've become um, more community oriented. Like we had tonight, we had there were like 10 people in my house making food and sharing and talking stories in different. I live in a house with 6 other people, exact opposite of you, I guess. Um, and so almost everybody had somebody over that we all know, people over. And so, yeah, and it's deep. We have deep conversations, and um, there's a lot of creative stuff that's going on that had never been doing before, because people have more time and less distraction.
Mhm.
So there's been a bunch of um, silver linings
Yeah.
to this thing. So, and I think people are getting to know themselves better.
Mhm.
And so when they come out, I think there's going to be a lot of different ways of relating and different ways of being in community. Um, yeah, I mean, my experience of gay community is much less about um, bars and organizations, and more like who I meet naturally.
Mhm.
And because we have like interests, like we like doing the same things, and if you happen to be homo oriented, that's great, or if not, that's fine. There's a lot of there's a lot of metrosexual, or like other than heteronormative straight men in Asheville
Mhm.
who are very much into being around gay guys and cuddling with them and sharing their emotions and being vulnerable, and they kind of look at us as role models. And that's been really interesting and sweet.
Mhm.
Um, and they're not like, teasing or being trade. They're not like doing like weird things. They're like bring their wives and their kids over, and you
Yeah.
know, yeah. So it's a big mix of community.
That's good.
And yeah, and I've actually met more gay women and bisexual women in the last year than I had the whole time I've been here.
Hmm.
Yeah, just through other situations, and um, had reasons to be in contact with them and them be in contact with me. So that's been a great addition, because I always used to hang out with the lesbians, and it hadn't been that way for a number of years. So I like that.
Do you think that this strong sense of community in Asheville has started to draw more people to the city?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things that have drawn so many people to the city. One is getting out of where they are, because a lot of people are like have realized through this whole thing that it was not healthy for them to be in such a stressful, dangerous situation in New York or LA or Detroit or even Atlanta or New Orleans. Like they just like, so a lot of those people are coming here, running from just the stress. Um, and then also because this is such a healthy place to live, it's like, yeah, it's healthy, it's beautiful, it's relaxed. So a lot of retired people obviously come running even more. A lot of wealthy people moving here, but then there's also a lot of younger people moving here too, to get away from that stuff. So um, I don't know if it's the community that's actually impulsing that, but it doesn't hurt.
Mhm.
So we have three. I have four new friends who've just moved here in the last 2 months, and community was on their list of reasons to move here.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
that's
And
really awesome.
and the gay community is kind of odd because it's very, um, in my experience, it's very like spread out and not, there's no neighborhood. And usually a town this big, there would be kind of a neighborhood at some point, but there
Mm.
really isn't here. And so my friends are all spread out, from people who live in Montford and North Asheville near where I live, and people who live downtown, and then all the people who live in, Canton and, Silva and Barnardsville and Burnsville and all these different places that are, a little far flung. So so there's no real like, and the like nightlife scene even before was not really anything for the last 10 years from what I've heard. I guess like 10 years ago there was like 4 or 5 clubs to go to, and everybody went and da da da, it was fun. And then they closed down, and you know, O. Henry's is pretty much the only holdover, and it's really not much to speak of. I
Mm.
mean, there's been some cute things that people have done there, um, but yeah, I don't know anybody. None of my gay friends go out regularly to bars or clubs, even before the COVID thing. And there's a lot of, I think, people who are in isolated couples or like yourself, they're by themselves somewhere. I know I do body work, and both my partner and I have clients that we drive half an hour up to their little isolated barn to
Mm.
do, to do a massage. So there's, yeah, it doesn't feel that much like a community like other cities I've lived in.
Yeah, it's more, I don't know, there's one big community and everyone's in it, as opposed to lots of other communities, just like
Yeah,
separate communities living next to each other.
yeah, yeah,
I feel like it's better that way.
yeah. I do too.
I I feel like everyone can learn from people who are not like themselves. So if you're all mixed together and you can interact with each other, then it's better for everyone.
I agree. I agree. Although I did like the couple of times I lived in a neighborhood, there's something pretty magical about that.
Mm.
Um, yeah, just because I don't know. I'm remembering I lived in Silver Lake in Los Angeles for a while, and it was a very kind of artsy gay neighborhood, but you would just know everybody, and walking around to any place, you just felt really safe, I
Mm.
guess. Safe and seen, and not that I don't feel safe here, because I do. I mean, if I can feel safe with the bears, I can feel safe with the non-bears.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what it is. There's like maybe like a familial thing that's nice about living in a neighborhood where people are like-minded,
Mhm.
but it's fine. I traded it.
Yeah. Do you intend to stay here, or is
Yeah.
this just one stop on the road?
Well, I've lived in a lot of different places and I always know when it's time to go. So it depends. I mean, if Asheville, apparently we have this big new aerospace company coming in, that's owned by like the biggest munitions company in the world. Um, and I don't like that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
if that kind of thing continues to happen, um, if growth, I think people really are serious about doing it well here in
Mhm.
Asheville, the growth, the boom. And so far, they've been doing a pretty good job. And if it gets too crazy, yeah, I might move somewhere else. And my partner and I usually kind of know when it's time, when the jig is up. Asheville's my favorite place I've ever lived. And I've lived a lot of places. So that said, if it isn't anymore,
Mhm.
I may move to Portugal or Zimbabwe or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Never know.
Never know. And I'm open to those. I like adventure, so
Nice. Well, do you have any other stories or comments or feelings that you'd like to share?
um I guess I would talk little bit about the history of these mountains, the
Mhm.
history of this place, and it's funny because a lot of folks in Asheville who've been here for a number of years, maybe 10, 20 years, complain about it being a touristy place now and all the tourists and it's ruined. And I'm always like, well, Asheville has always been a tourist town ever since it was created. Um, it was, a hub and a center back in the turn of the last century, and it never stopped. It just got economically depressed, and nobody came here for a while,
Yeah.
numbers of years, and then there was nobody here, and so people formed their own communities, and then the tourists came back because everybody made it cute again, and so people started coming back. It's always been an arts town as well, um, and has an amazing history with that. It's always been a gay-friendly town, um, mostly because it was an arts town and a healing town. So a lot of healing arts people from a long time ago, um, artisans, theater makers, um, dance, so many different things have been thriving here from the beginning. And, there were so many trains that used to come into Asheville from everywhere. People would take trains from New York right to Asheville just because it was the coolest place to be. And you came here if you needed to heal and if you wanted to be seen at the right parties and all different things at the Biltmore and the Grove Park Inn and, all these places. So there's something about these mountains that has always attracted this flow of all cultures and different energies. So I think that's one of the reasons that gay community has always felt safe here and felt good because there's something about the vortex of this land being in this bowl in the middle of the Smokies. Um, it's a very gentle place. And yeah, I just would hope that people in the gay and queer communities can really see that, even if it feels like there's too many other people and they don't feel accepted or whatever, or seen, I think they do. I think you can feel safe here.
Mm.
I think this has always been our home as queer people. Western North Carolina, I think it's always been our home.
Yeah.
Yeah. So make it that way, you know. I walk on the street with my partner and I also have a boyfriend because we have an open relationship. But whenever I'm with either one of them in the streets of Asheville, I'm holding their hands. I'm very much a believer that to be out and proud is really important so that we can continue to be out and proud.
Mm.
That we have to be in our daily life showing up as ourselves, you know. It's not like sticking it in people's faces, but just like, no, I'm going to be who I am in a big way,
Yeah.
so that people see me and they're reminded that this is when the people come from some of the like Confederate flag waving mountains outside this city and
Where I'm living.
where you're living. Exactly. Yeah. But that they, you know, when they come here, they remember that Asheville is a place where queer people can walk down the street and feel safe.
Mm.
And they can see that and they can get whatever they get out of it, but at least they see it, you know, whether it makes them more accepting or whether it makes them angry, but not going to mess with people, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm happy to see more people of color in downtown Asheville. I think since the Black Lives Matter movement, since the taking down of the monuments, since a bunch of other things, I think Black folk who've lived here and in the surrounding communities now feel safe to be in the city. So they're everywhere. It's like, wow. And the Mexican folks who are living in South Asheville
Mm.
come downtown now. I've even seen a few Asian people. I mean, when I moved here, I was like, this is the whitest place I've ever been, and it's scary.
Yeah.
It felt really scary at first. So I'm very happy that the more tourists and people that are coming, it's changing the demographic. You know,
Yeah.
so.
Wonderful.
Mm.
Okay. Well, my last question is, do you know of a person who might be interested in contributing their story that we might be able to reach out to?
I could tell like 4 or 5 people probably.
Mm.
I can think of, yeah, I can think of a bunch of people. Not, I mean, like, people
Mm.
are all of a sudden coming through because I didn't realize you needed more people. I would have thought of that before, but um, yeah, and I know people who've lived here for a long time too in Western North Carolina. So, would you want me
Yeah.
to? Can I tell you them later?
Yeah, you're more than welcome to forward them my information or
Cool.
refer to them to the website where, they can read about it and see some stories that other people have contributed and learn about what we're trying to do.
Cool. Yeah,
Awesome.
that sounds great. I'd love to do that.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and share your stories.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being such a good listener and good
Mhm.
question maker. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah. Yeah, you seem
Yeah,
like a very sweet person.
try my best. Not always successful.
Well, yeah, I mean, none of us can always be successful at all of that. We all have our shadows. So do you live in your by yourself, and that staircase is amazing behind you.
Yeah.
Did you make
I
it?
actually I know I
Oh, okay.
have zero skills,
Okay.
unfortunately, but I moved here from Alaska actually
Wow.
last summer, and my parents found this place for me. So I kind of agreed to move here without ever actually physically seeing it, and it worked out.
Cool.
Yeah,
How long were you in Alaska?
I was there almost 6 years.
Wow. Are you like a geologist or something, or what do you?
I'm in public health service, so
Ah,
I work for the Surgeon General, and my purpose is to go to communities that have great health needs and to kind of fill in those gaps that are in the healthcare system.
wow. What a great
Yeah.
service.
So I worked for the native Alaskan population,
Mm,
based in Nome, and then traveled around the surrounding area.
mm.
Now I'm here working for the Cherokee.
How wonderful. That's so cool. I have a good friend who's Cherokee. His name is Tyson. I don't know if you know him.
I don't
Tyson
know.
is he's a queer Cherokee who does a lot of work with people in the community there.
That's wonderful.
I should put him in touch with you for sure, because
Yeah.
he's an amazing storyteller, or
Yeah.
they are an amazing storyteller.
Mhm.
Yeah, Tyson's fantastic, and
Awesome.
he knows all the aunties,
Mhm.
all the old ladies, and he has all the stories, so many stories. Yeah, I'll put him
Oh,
in touch with you.
well, I appreciate it.
Cool.
Um, I don't know if you got the forms I sent earlier.
I did, and I was trying to figure out how to fill it out. So I had a difficult time filling it out, but I think what I'll do is print it out and then take the photograph,
Yeah.
because I was trying to fill it out online and it was not working, the form, for some reason. So,
Okay. Yeah, that'd be fine. In no particular hurry. Um,
okay.
but before we can actually um, upload anything to our archives, we would need that information.
Okay.
And if you have any, we also are accepting items. If you have any kind of memorabilia or mementos or special things that relate to the LGBT plus community that you feel like people might be interested in seeing or learning more about, you have the option of having someone photograph them to upload those pictures to the archive, or you could even donate them and they would be put on display. Um,
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
think I have anything
yeah, I
other
have
than,
absolutely something that would be interesting.
right. Maybe some vintage porn, but that may not be what you're looking for.
Probably not, though it is an important part of the histories for
It
sure.
is. It is for sure.
Yeah. What they are going to do is review the recordings and make a transcript, and then send the transcript to you to review. And you can say, oh, this is garbage, I want it all thrown away, or you can request certain pieces be redacted, or you can add comments or whatever it is that you like, because all of this story that you have provided is yours and yours alone.
Well, I appreciate that. And I'm a total open book, so I know that I will have nothing to redact.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for me? Or?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. If you feel like you have anything else that you think of that you'd like to share, feel free to let me know and we can do this again.
Okay, we'll do that. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for doing this and being interested.
Yeah, no problem. Have a great
Cool.
night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.